What's up, everyone? Liron here. Thank you for joining me in another video. Today, I have a very special guest here that I'm really excited about. Cesar Santos is here with me on call. He is a world-renowned artist and painter. He presents his work in museums and galleries all around the world, including in the US, China, Italy, Costa Rica. His ideas are fascinating, and his dedication to art and striving to always become better and more, let's say, true to yourself, I would say. I find it very motivating for me. And aside from the galleries and the museums, he also shares his passion for art and social media. So on his YouTube channel and on Instagram, places that you have to check out. And I just wanted to tell a fun story of how I first came to learn about you. I was watching your interview with Proco while I was washing the dishes. As soon as I heard you, I knew I had to contact you, and I finished the dishes, went to my computer, composed the email that led to this call. So this is really cool for me, and I want to thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Liron. I'm glad to be here.
So happy to have you. How are you? How was your day?
Good. Beginning now. I get up a little late most of the days, but I go to sleep very, very early too in the morning. So
Yeah, and I'm after like a trip to the north of Israel, so I slept 4.5 hours, so I'm a bit tired, a bit edgy, but we're gonna get through this. I wanted to start with a fun fact. Actually, I believe we're the only two people who painted, as far as I know, Professor Jordan Peterson, Dr. Jordan Peterson, which is funny to me because I didn't know that. And then when I started looking into your stuff, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So if we already start with something heady, I actually want to start with something that you said that really struck me. You said the truth is an individual point of view. That idea fascinates me, and I want to start on purpose with that. I want to take, I don't, it doesn't, maybe you don't remember you said it, but I suppose you can understand what I'm talking about. So I'm actually really curious to hear more about that. And then we can go into some lighter topics. So.
yeah. So you're mentioning that you want to talk about like truth as an artist.
Yeah, that's a good topic. Yeah.
Because no, I understand. I think actually with Proco, he
Yeah.
was mocking the interview, calling it finding the ultimate truth. Because I think I think he heard it somewhere and he wanted me to talk about it since I kind of like the philosophy of art and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think at one point in the interview I said the ultimate truth is your limitations, and he's like, it was funny, but I mean it's. And let me tell. I mean, you probably told everybody, but obviously we have not rehearsed this stuff, and we didn't talk about this. So is
Yeah.
if we're gonna get into this type of conversation, we have to kind of think as we go, because it's something we don't have prepared to. And it's good that
Definitely.
you're interested in this type of conversation, so we can go back and forth like this,
Yeah.
discovering what the truth, if any, come out of this.
And for me, that's the challenge, actually. As an interviewer, I kind of have to follow the flow of the conversation, but still be spontaneous and in the moment with you. That's a part of it. I really want to listen to what you say, think about it. And also, yeah, I think that's a good direction.
So for me, the truth is what already has happened in a way, and then from there you move forward with enough weight behind that you can make informed decisions to better yourself, because that's a purpose of all of us artists, to try to reach that connection with our art and what we have learned and our environment, and present it in a way that is more truth to us. Because people, for some reason, they feel when something is not true, when something is being pretentious, and that is a key that some people say, oh, I'm gonna, once I show this in this show, or I present myself in this magazine. And a lot of times we think that little events like that in our career can make it, not knowing that finding that connection from your past towards your future, and that journey is what makes people fall in love with you as an artist, because they kind of buy into this amazing journey that you're going through, and then they want to be part of that. So I think that's part of the truth as an artist. It's like your truth because you're looking at your past, and then through that you're moving forward.
That's fascinating. There's actually a lot to unpack there, because when you said the past, I even think about it in terms of not just my personal past, but like my ancestors' past, because it's all kind of encoded in you without getting too out there. But it's really like you're the culmination of all these things. You know what I mean?
Yes, 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 and they do influence you, like even your location, all
Mm.
this stuff. Because some people have their mind a little bit detached from their past, or maybe you don't like certain aspects that you have been through,
Mm.
and you don't want to deal with you or some aspects of
Mm.
you, and you want to move to an ideal place. And
Yes.
sometimes that's hard because there is so much distance in between what you want to be and who you really are, that that detachment keeps you isolated, and it shows. So I think the best thing and the first thing you have to do is accept who you are and what you are,
Mhm.
and then think of from there taking it to that special place.
And funny enough, owning that place is what makes you special. It's actually going to these places you don't want to visit. That's where your uniqueness, like 100% you, that no one else can create. And what you talked about, it's amazing the sense that people have when they recognize inauthenticity. You can tell where something, even here in this video, even when you watch someone talk, even when you look at a painting, a piece of art, you can tell. It's like you can tell when the person is really, it's his. And it doesn't mean people fake it on purpose, but it's just about knowing yourself. Sometimes it just
Yeah,
comes from
yeah, and there are many ways to reveal that and to present it and to to make it happen, because some people have a language and a manner of looking for this
mm,
inner voice and past experience that is cool. Like some people test stuff, and and some are more serious, and so
mm,
but there is something about, yeah, looking at what you have done and saying, okay, I'm observing this, I'm going to be aware of everything I am and see where I can connect the dots. Like for
mm,
me, that has been an issue. And to make it more realistic, is like, for instance, when I studied classical art, me being Cuban and having no a connection with that heavy classical art or even culture, where my buildings are new and my
mm,
museums are new, and
yeah.
so for me to go to Europe and learn all these traditional techniques, it changed me a little bit, but I cannot abandon who I was. I need to remember that I'm Cuban, I'm from the Caribbean. I have
Mm,
maybe a tendency to like bright colors, bright sunlight, maybe the beach, and stuff like
mm.
that, or
The warmth of the people, of the
yeah,
places.
the music I listen to, all
Mm.
that is part of me. So I cannot abandon that and become European, So for me, it has been interesting to mix this heavy history of European art and culture, to mix it up and accept it from my point of view of being Cuban immigrant,
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that's actually what I see. And that's part of discovering how to make it work for you.
Mhm. So actually, we're going to talk about your studies and your experience in Europe in a few moments. That's fascinating to me as well. There's one thing that I want to touch upon now because you talked about it and the whole bringing your own personal thing into it. What's your take on creating your own style, artistic style, and developing that? Because a lot of people seem to struggle with the either they cannot feel their own style and other people can tell immediately it's this person's work, but you yourself can't sense it,
Mm.
or you may not still have it yet and honed it enough for it to be authentic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 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 no, and I think it's tough because the moment you start learning technique, you forget about yourself, and
Mm,
you cannot be you, because you're always being renewed in a way. So as an artist, once you're learning technique, you're being new, and the idea will be to filter, to get used to the new technique and develop it enough so that it becomes yours, and then you can actually focus in your style, which is your past and your what you're attracted to
mm,
through those new techniques that you learn. That's why it's easy to either don't want to learn anything else because you're focused in this style. And for me, the style is basically like going towards a research that is very particular, and then that creates a system of work and certain habits that become only yours because only you are doing the research.
mm,
You see, so then every brushstroke has
Your
how
own
do you say,
print
it's
on
an
it, I would say.
intention. Yeah, it has an
Okay.
intention coming from you. So then it shows that if you're just trying to get something outside of that, then you lose that style because you're just influenced by the surroundings and the environment mainly.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with that completely. That's amazing. Actually, I want to talk about something else that you said earlier that I liked. You talked about the limitations is the only real truth, which is true because no matter how much you work towards developing that personal style, you never make it. There's nothing like that. I don't know if it's yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's why it was a joke. Like the ultimate truth is your limitations because you're limited to who you are and
Mm,
can be. And sometimes that is the truth and embrace it instead of saying, "Oh man, I'm far away from this academy. I cannot be the artist I want to be," or
mm,
"I'm far away from this place that I want to show my art." So then you forget about being an artist. I don't think it's
mhm,
like that. I think it's you looking at your situation and using that situation to become the best artist you can be.
mhm,
And as you grow, then other opportunities open up and then you move. You don't move first, you move
mhm,
internal first, and then the outward world moves with you.
mhm.
But I see a lot that saying, people saying, "Oh, if I was lucky to study there, or if I could do that." I'm like, no, that's what I did. You do what you did. You do what you
Yeah,
do. you know
yeah. So we're
and there's
actually,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
there is proof that you can be an artist anywhere. There are artists from everywhere, and yeah, there are certain aspects and places that are easier to evolve and to develop. But I think if you focus from the inside, you can actually reach those places, especially now
Mhm.
how the world is.
Yeah. You think that with enough hard work and experimentation and all of that, developing a style that's 100% unique, do you think that's an inevitable thing?
If you mean if you go through the effort,
You
what were you
go
saying?
through the effort, you put in the time, you try and bring into the picture who you are, not necessarily actively, but you just live your life, you know?
Hmm.
Do you think that's
Hmm.
like a natural course and that's just what happens? Because I think a lot of people need to hear that. A lot of people are afraid they're working, they're practicing, and of course, some people imitate others, and I think that's okay to a point, but you kind of want to let go of that. So do you think, assuming you don't do that, yeah.
Well, this is what I see. I see that everybody has the same amount of time during the day. Everybody, regardless of where you are or your conditions, right? So if you have a whole day and you live many days, that is who you are. So for instance, if you do stuff that people do, if you do stuff that if you watch stuff that other people are watching,
Mhm.
and if you go to places where other people are, you become other people. But if you want to be unique, if you want to have one point of view, you have to behave during the same hours that everybody's doing as nobody is behaving. So
Mhm.
you have to watch things that nobody's watching. You have to be reading things that most people are not reading. So the combination of going to places where not people were expecting you to go creates an individual that is unique, because that is the literal definition of it. You're
Mhm.
behaving every day differently, so the results will be different. You know what I'm saying? Like if I have never
Mhm.
seen, I don't know, Star Wars, it's impossible for me to do something like Star Wars because I haven't seen it, I haven't been part of it. So then you create something that is strange. So the people that are, let's say, that'll be the only movie out there. Everybody is expecting to
Yeah.
compare anything to that. So you do something unique and people will be like, wow, that's strange. And I think that is part of being the artist. What do you do every day? And I think part of being successful and part of finding your style is being with you all the time and getting
Mhm.
caught doing things with other people or with yourself for your
Mhm.
vision. That's like a practical thing, that a tool that I can suggest.
That's really exactly the same thing I suggest. I have this concept that I talk about. I call it inspiration and isolation. So what I do, and this works really well for me, I take a time period where it's complete inspiration. I follow the art that I love, because that I really love, because that gives me a clue as to what I want to convey in my art, like the sense of light or a certain message or a certain atmosphere. And I go through a time period where I do that and I focus on that. But then I let go of that completely. I don't allow myself any external influence for maybe a month, 2 months, however I need, and I just focus on me. I'm just gonna create. I'm gonna experiment. I won't have any external influences, and that alternation allows me personally, I think, to improve the techniques and the outside experiences as well. But then I go inside and I incorporate it into what I am. See what I mean? So
Yes,
it's kind
yes,
of
yes.
similar to what you say. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
So
That's part of that. It's like your actions will say who you are, pretty
mhm.
much.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, when we meet, we come at the moment in time and we talk, and it's hard to have that present, if you don't say it. But I spend my time doing stuff that is developing into my stuff. So when I present it, if people say, oh, I wish I could do that, I'm like, are you doing it? Are you,
Yeah, exactly.
because you could be doing it, and it's a long term thing. It's like, it's not like suddenly you decide to be something, because that's fake. So
Mhm.
you are what you do, not what you want to do, or what you do in a short term because you got a fever, and then
Yeah.
now
Mhm.
you want to become this artist with this unique style. No, it's like a behavioral thing
Mhm.
through time.
There's a lot of proactiveness to it, meaning some people just wait for something to happen and some just go and do that. And actually, talking about proactiveness, I actually want to talk about your studies in the Angel Academy, because I know you started the story that you started somewhere else, you understood it wasn't for you, then you went there. Now, we don't have to necessarily go into that. I'm actually curious about the day-to-day experience uh, in the Angel Academy, because this is a place that teaches by the ways and methods of the old masters. Is that correct? So
Yes,
I
I
think a
mean,
lot of people are curious.
as close as possible. With, I mean, there's
Mhm.
no old master there present, but yes, with the intention and with the knowledge as best as possible
Mm.
to reproduce it. Yeah.
Yeah, there is electricity though. So it's not
Yeah, yeah,
exactly
yeah,
the way of the
exactly,
yeah.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. You know what I meant. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I get it.
But the
So
principles are, yeah, yeah.
so
Compared
I
to the other
actually like,
principles,
yeah, this is the same. So I'm curious to hear about your daily life there. Like, I know you painted a lot, I know you worked a lot, you drew a lot. So if you can tell us about that, and then I can focus you on some specific stuff.
well, as I did not know what was going to happen at the Angel Academy. All I knew was that for years, for high school and college, I was studying art, and I was already getting used to going to study. So the work ethic part of it was not a problem.
Mhm.
So because the academy in Italy was not expecting you to come in like other institutions that they would check you or how late you are. You're pretty much on your own, and that's the dangerous part of it, because if you don't have a good work ethic, you can go off track very easily, because the teachers
Mhm.
are there for the project, and you take your time to develop it. So the first thing I did was to not fall into what people thought that was. You see, like, I did not know any classical art before that. I was more into contemporary art, and I didn't idealize the world in the sense that I
Mhm.
want to go there to learn like the masters. For me, it's just
Mhm.
another school, contemporary school, giving me these options. And like you said, they have electricity, and they have all these stuff that are available to me to if I go to an art store. So there was nothing classical about it other than the philosophy and the principles of it.
Mhm.
But so when I came in, the first thing they told me, you feel the tension like the first day, because then
Mhm.
there's the advanced students working on the projects that are impressive, and then you come in and you're giving these tools, this pencil, and these limitations to start working with pencil and a
Mhm.
little paper like this as a copy. So it's
Paint?
like a
Haha.
very,
No way.
not even like, you're not an artist, like learn how to
Yeah.
hold a pencil. So it was the structure was very clear, very systematic. But also, I think the most important part, since you asked, was for me not to fall into the intimidation mold that they already
Mhm.
had. So it's like all the student bought into this idea that once you go in there, it's like, you know uh it's weird. It's like, this is like grandiose, you have to pay attention
Mhm.
to this. And I think that was a problem. I'm like, okay, no, listen, this is a paper like this, and I can just draw it, and I just have. So the whole attitude was fresh from me because
Mhm.
of my situation, and I think that is what made me do things differently. And I
Mhm.
think that's important, because that's, again, like what I said before. If you
Yeah.
fall into the mentality of the group, you become like the group. But the
Mhm.
moment I didn't do it, they didn't like it per se. And even when I graduated
The
from the
group,
Angel
that
Academy,
is.
I was, yeah, even when I graduated, I was not looked at as a person to listen to or follow,
Hmm.
or as a role model. and I have to, yeah, I mean, it's fun because I'm not saying anything against them. It's natural. If I go there and do my projects faster and play around and then change stuff, and
Mm.
I put like flies on my cast, I drew them, and a roach on the cast, and I will play around with this stuff because I was having fun. And for their discipline, that was a no. So,
Yeah.
and so basically, to respond to you also, the way the school was teaching was first pencil,
Hmm.
get used to it, learn how shadows are with a pencil. They're
Yeah.
supposed to be mysterious, soft, not detail, compressed, so all these beautiful things, I started seeing it in master paintings, and I started seeing it at night, for instance, when there's no detail, the lights are off, it does feel mysterious and soft, and there is not
Hmm.
a lot of texture. So then I started relating everything to nature and how I react in nature. So a sharp line feels like crisp and calls your attention, and a
Hmm.
softer line looks like it's a and it's holding. So I started having metaphors like that, and that helps me too, because then you can apply that in other cases
Yeah,
if
that was something new to you. That's the first
Mhm.
time you kind of started making these connections?
Yes, totally.
Mhm.
Yeah, before I was detached from the tools and the principles. So before, a shadow was just a name for a dark area or
Mm.
something. Now I'm getting more into really understanding the qualities of a shadow,
Mm.
in relationship to nature, and how you apply it on the canvas or on paper.
Mhm. And a lot of people ask, that what it like, how can I get better? How can I improve? And I just want to context it for my audience. From what I've heard in the interview, you've been doing the whole like 8 hours of school, and then an extra 8 hours of just you experimenting on your own, and
Yes,
then sleeping 8 hours. Those were your days.
pretty much. Yeah,
And
and when you repeat that intensely like that, then then it makes a difference.
yeah, it compounds. That's what I find, because it adds
Yes,
up, and then you're like explosion of abilities and of things you didn't even know exist. So
yes,
actually,
and
I wanted to, yeah, sure.
and to yourself too, and also compared to others, because like I said before, we had the same amount of days. So
Mm,
in one day, if I did more than others, I'm already
exactly.
ahead in the idea of
Mm,
experimentation and moving forward. So once that's repeated,
mm,
literally, you become more, yeah.
yeah, I love that. I actually have that competitive edge. It doesn't always come out in the videos, but I have to be better, knowing that I get an edge over the other kind of players in my game. That's amazing.
Yeah,
So
it's a fun,
uh,
yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the mediums that you used. So you started with pencil, and then were you trained in oils only, or was there something else? Like, just trying to
It
figure
was
out.
pretty much first pencil,
Mhm.
because it's the easiest medium to work
Yeah.
with, because most people have written before, so everybody knows how to hold the pencil, kind of thing.
Is it a normal pencil or like a graphite or something?
Normal
More
pencil,
like
maybe
whatever it is.
HB. We went to 2B, HB, and 2H. So three
Okay.
pencils, not so nothing fancy. And then from there, with those principles, you move to charcoal. And then charcoal means that you're gonna be using a different type of medium that is harder to control, because it
Mhm.
tends to be messy, and then you have to sharpen it. And but it also can get darker. So then you have a positive aspect of it, and since you study the principles, you know what you're looking for, so then you can manage the tool to do what you envision
Mm.
and what you used to control with pencil, you know
Mhm.
and then after you master that, then you move into black and white paint, oil.
Yeah.
So then you feel like the pencil and the charcoal, but now you're gonna get even darker with paint, and
Mhm.
also it's a different medium, so you get used to then
Completely different technique.
yeah, fat over lean, all this other stuff that are particular to the oil, but not worrying about color per se. So then once you master the tool with the values, then you increase another element of color and temperature and all this stuff. So then,
Mhm.
so by the time you go to still life, you already have the tools to construct, to, separate values, lights, and all this stuff. Yeah.
Mhm. Most of my audience, I think, would lean towards the watercolor. I'm actually curious just to hear if you have any experience with that, if you got to play around with it a bit.
A little bit, not so much. I used to do more in college because they didn't have an area for oils. But yeah, I'm not
Mm.
that knowledgeable about it. I have done it here and there, but yeah, I understand it's like another difficulty to deal with. So, and I like to just do the same thing over and over. So if oil works, then I just kind of keep working with it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. My approach is that I want to, and I see a lot of people that spread their energy all around. And to me, it's like really the jack of all trades, a master of none thing, which I may be mistaken about. And some people do get the whole mixed media thing right. But for me personally, I know I want to be like the best I can with this particular thing, and I may allow myself like minimal experimentation while I'm at it. But I feel like it has to be like you have to put all your effort into this thing for a while at least to really get a
Yes. I think
full
so. I
grip
think
on it.
so. I think the variety can come after. Like if you
Yeah,
look at
exactly. You
many
can do whatever
masters,
you want. Yeah.
yeah, after you understand how you communicate, then you can add a little bit of things. But at the beginning, if you try too many tools, it's the same idea, breaking the principle from the academy, which is control the tool first until once you have squeezed everything that that tool can do, then
Mhm.
move to another tool. So that's the thing. Like if you do a little bit of watercolor and then you're like, this is enough, and I'm gonna go to oil, you never completely understood the
Yeah.
oil. The change of medium starts already with a lack of understanding from
Mhm.
the first one, and you come from like a failure point of view and want to experiment more like escaping
Mm.
instead of dealing
Looking
with it.
for
So
that whole new interesting thing
yeah,
instead
so
of
you have an
finding the
excuse to
joy in the thing you have.
yeah, so you have an excuse to fail, like, oh, but the reason is because, like, well, go back to
Mm.
what you used to then.
Yes, yes. So I wanted to ask you, I don't know how you would answer that, but what's the least expected thing you learned in the Angel Academy, if there's such a thing? And yeah.
The least expected thing I learned at the Angel Academy,
Mm.
that's a funny question. I think everything, the funny part is that I don't have the whole experience for
Mhm.
me was so, I had no idea. First, I didn't even believe that I could learn what they were teaching. Like, that's the problem, that I
Mm.
believe. I'm like, why would anybody share their secrets if they know it? Like, that was my mentality before. And even my family was like, are you sure you want to spend all that money? Because they have all the results there, but maybe they're playing with you. And that's like, a few people can do that,
Hmm.
because why would they want to teach you these secrets
It's
if
all a
they
lie. It's
know?
all a conspiracy.
Yeah, we could understand that concept at first, because art in the contemporary aspect of it is that you develop a voice, you develop your own way, and you
Mhm.
don't teach it. You don't teach it, you just do it. So that's normally the approach. But the classical mentality is different. Is okay, this is the basic stuff, everybody should know it, then
Yeah,
you do whatever
everybody
you want
should.
with it. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
there's
don't
some
you
stuff
don't
that's.
start with the secret. Like in classical art, maybe you finish with the secret.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
become sergeant after everybody knows what sergeant knew first.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's like you start with the most boring stuff, supposedly, but it's actually the most interesting. Gets you the most interesting places, I would say. So that's
Yes.
interesting that you bring that up. I actually wanted to ask you, because you went the whole. I'm self-taught so far, and I've been thinking a lot about the whole thing because I really strive to reach that crazy level. And I know myself, and I don't know that I'm hardworking. I know that I can actually sit down and do the drills and practice and do the whole isolation, inspiration, do the whole thing, put in the time. Do you think that uh, that's a viable way to do it on your own, or do you think that, generally speaking, formal education does give you an important basis that would have otherwise you would have missed?
Hmm. Okay. My opinion on that is you shouldn't you shouldn't hmm, you shouldn't have this is interesting, because I believe that a lot of people that talk about education, whether it was better, are also uh, preventing themselves because of a mentality. Like, let's say you have an academy nearby, or you have access to be in the academy, but
Mm,
you say no for a certain reason.
mhm,
I think that's a problem, because I think you, as an artist, you have to be the sponge. You have to think that the
mhm,
school is not the school. You're always self-taught, or everything is a school.
mhm,
For me, that's how I see it. So I see
mhm,
you with being like that hunger to become and learn, I think if there is no school that can satisfy that,
Hmm.
then don't. And that's part of also of that could be an advantage because you're doing something, yourself schooling yourself to the point that what you create is unique because nobody can identify a school from it, you know.
Hmm.
So there is dangers in going to school and then doing like everybody else does it. Even though you become better, you still become better within a group, which doesn't help. So you have to be
Hmm.
worse and be unique, and and develop into
Yeah.
something good. So I think if the individual really wants to get better, I don't think the school is necessary, unless you are forcing yourself to not go to school because of
Hmm.
some
Resistance or
problem,
something like that.
psychological problem you have against
Mm.
schooling or something like that. I think that could be bad because you're forcing yourself to do certain things. But I think yeah, I think it's even, I mean, I'm lucky because I had the opportunity to learn, and my understanding at the time was you study with the best person you can find in the world that does that. And
Mm.
for me, that was my journey. But I couldn't have the intelligence to be able to self teach myself.
Mm.
So it's hard for me to look at another case and analyze it like
Yeah,
that. But
exactly.
what I've seen a lot is this like taboos and mentality and being proud of that, or
Yeah, not going to doing it yourself or.
or feeling like a victim because you couldn't have it, and then you're like, man, I wish I had it but I don't.
Mhm.
So it depends. I think an artist, that's the beauty of being an artist. And right now, even let's say self, I don't think you can be self-taught, because even if you
I'm
look at a
definitely not
painting,
self-taught. I learned from everyone.
yeah, even if you look at a
That's
painting, you're learning. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm learning from
Like,
oil painters all the time, and I'm not sure anyone in the watercolor sphere does that. So,
yeah, yeah. I think it's either different types of schools.
mhm.
That's the question. But yeah, there is knowledge in these schools that it will take you longer. Let's say if you want to achieve that, it will take you longer by yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, I understand.
But
I actually really like what you said about if you're self-taught, then you actually it's like you can't be self-taught without considering going to school because you actually want to reach out and grab all the information that you can. And for me it's a bit weird because I'm actually started researching this a short while ago because of some new ideas and inspirations that I got. And I really thought about the whole. For me, I just feel like I am exposing myself to a lot of new things. See what I mean? And I just feel like I know how to do it and I don't close myself off. But I do recognize the fact that maybe at some point I would want to uh, try something like that, just to round things up a bit. And I do
yeah, to
recognize the
connect
importance of
the
the
dots.
fundamentals and the things that everyone should probably know, because that's the main thing that people mess up. It's just the fundamentals. Their own uniqueness actually comes through even when they're amateurs, but the actual fundamentals are lacking, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, my most of the people that I was surrounded by when I was in Miami told me that the academy will kill my creativity. And they told me,
Mm,
be careful with the academy because it can. And it's true. I saw many artists, and I have many stories that I know that someone was playing around, being free with art, and as soon as they hit the academy was so heavy and so gave so much weight to that person.
mm,
And then that person came out thinking, man, now I know all this stuff. What I was doing
mm,
wasn't good, because it teaches you that if you break these rules out of ignorance, it's not good. So then you become a slave to
mm.
carry these principles forward, and then that can kill your fun spirit of making art and making it, keeping it interesting. So that's the danger of the academies
Yeah, I
that you might
understand.
not have, because you're just getting here and getting here and there, and finding out for yourself. Yeah, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, there's always that risk, and I think it's just about finding the balance. And I guess knowing yourself, that's the main thing, self-awareness. That's the key thing. If you're avoiding something, maybe you should give it a try and ask for, like, our fears really lead us in the way that they tell us you should go there. Like, you're scared, but you should go there. That's really interesting. I wanted to ask you, so like you, and I want to think about how I'm going to phrase that question, because you have a very unique connection with the more traditional way of doing things. You bring back the wisdom of the old masters into a newer generation that isn't necessarily doing that. Does that make sense?
Is the generation is not
Let's say
following?
you're doing something that's a very classical approach. You're mixing it up. Of course, we're going to talk about the synchronism as well, but I'm just curious because you bring back something that not a lot of people do. You know, some, of course, many people go through the academic, I guess, approach, but you actually bring back a lot of ideas that are fundamentals that a lot of people don't go through. Even maybe people like me that go through the, you know, just doing everything themselves. There is this feeling, you talked about how you want to bring back the wisdom of the past in some kind of way. So I wanted to ask you more about that. Is that something that you feel like you're trying to do? And if you can explain to me, if so, what it is you're trying to achieve, I guess.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
that
no,
makes sense.
that's interesting. Yeah, yeah, totally. Because that, as soon as I started discovering this side, like the classical aspect of
Mm,
application and seeing nature, I found it so enriching and so, I mean, it was such an incredible thing to feel that I said, man, I need to inspire people to look for this stuff too.
mhm,
And it's by example. So even though I wouldn't be the serious type that will keep, that like seriousness to the art, because I don't think it was. I think these people were comedians. Like, I think
mm,
Caravaggio and Rembrandt and Fran Hals, and I mean, you name it, all these people now it looks like in a museum and serious with a gold frame. But I think the reason that they broke is because they wanted to bring something fun and different
mm,
to their time, as a hint of playfulness. So I said, it's funny that now we are used to being so much, you know, how do you say, like, well, we have all these synonyms about contemporary art, that is about breaking rules and doing something and being cynical and all this stuff. And
mhm,
I said, within all this craziness that you see, I think bringing back the seriousness and elegance of classical painting is a funny thing to
mhm,
incorporate within the world. That's why I love going to contemporary art fairs and having shows in contemporary environments, because I'm playing with that idea. I'm saying, oh yeah, you might have shed in a can. I'm bringing you like serious brushstrokes from the masters and stuff.
mhm,
So it's like another input. So part of my game is inspiring people with the amazingness of that
mm.
classical world,
Yeah, I
in
know.
my time. Maybe if I was born in the 19th century, I'll be
Mm,
Duchamp. I'll be the
yeah.
one saying, let me do, let me break. So I think that's what art is. It's like always breaking the norm and pushing stuff
Mm,
and making people uncomfortable. Regardless of the name, it's being eccentric and stuff like that. So yes, I do want to bring back these principles, but I'm trying to voice it,
mm.
in my own way. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's completely new to me because I was gonna ask a few different questions, but now I figured it out. It's interesting to me. I think I don't know. I'm kind of doing something similar with watercolor, trying to bring back the approach that I think is like the more traditional watercolor approach. But I'm really connecting with what you said about that this is the counterculture or the avant-garde, doing things now that are actually traditional is something new and refreshing today, because you see a lot of this different type of art right now that is a bit more, let's say, common, and bringing that back is kind of your comedy, I would say, or in, you know.
Yeah, it's the opposition starting again. It's like a new way
Yeah.
to oppose it, but then it comes with the rigor and the discipline and all and the knowledge. It's not the easy way out to break the norm.
Yeah,
It's like the
that's
kind of like the responsible way to break the norm in a way.
mm. It's really, it's fascinating to me. Yeah, it comes with all the comedic value, but then all of the actual techniques and the fundamentals and doing things the right way, I would say. So
Yeah.
that's really really interesting.
That's
So
why pushing it, sorry, that's why pushing
yeah,
it
sure.
to the weird point is more valuable than keeping it serious, because it's expected to be serious, because most people that like the past live in this idealized world, and when they bring it with the beauty that they
Mhm.
imagine. But if you bring it like that, then people are surprised by it, and that in itself is contemporary. So yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
just repeating kind of like what I said
Yeah,
before.
sure. It reiterates it, and so would you say that am I saying it correctly? Is that syncretism or syncretism, right?
Yeah, yeah, syncretism. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So is that kind of your way of doing it right now? The whole thing where you combine and you show and you surprise and it's kind of different?
Yeah, that's just, I mean, it's a word that one of my friends that we always talk about philosophy, he
Hmm.
actually came up with that word and he said, "You're doing syncretism." And then we went into it and I analyzed it and I said, "That's funny because I saw myself in that position." But it wasn't like a term that I invented to go to it to be unique or something, It's something that I realized it was me. It's my result of
Hmm.
being in a contemporary world with classical influences making the argument.
Mm.
But so that, yeah, my whole series of playing with different art and artists, genres and opposing style, that was the game of it. At the same time I was practicing different aesthetics
Mm.
because I was pretty much copying other genres and other styles, and then in the meantime I created kind of like a fun game and a voice to move forward. So
Mm.
but now I'm kind of looking for the path to be myself without having to refer to other artists. So that's been my struggle lately.
Mm. I'm happy you mentioned that because I was just about to ask you if you feel a shift in that kind of approach. And by the way, I just want to mention syncretism. If anyone who's listening to this, you're not familiar with it, you should check it out. That's probably the work that you're most renowned for, I guess, right now. But I wanted to ask, do you feel a shift in the direction which is what you started saying, that you're trying now to maybe bring this 100%, not 100% because it's already 100% from you, I think, but kind of bringing your complete originality to it, I would guess.
Yes, and I think it's still syncretism in the sense of the word, but I think what happened is that at first you become naive. Like
Mm.
when you're expressing art at the beginning, it comes out a little bit naive because it shows that you are out of control and you're kind of
Mm.
exaggerating things.
And there's
And
something nice about naivete also. But
yes,
now
yes, yes.
there's something interesting about it. But now I want you to continue because there is something charming about it.
Yeah, because it comes out with the pure guts. Like you show
Exactly.
your
Yeah.
intention, but then after a while of you working with it, you start polishing it and turning it and developing it. And as you mature as an artist, you take things to a more compact level. So then I believe that what I'm doing now is the same idea because I'm still playing with the overall idea of high quality and like trying to perceive the world with this view from the past, from
Mhm.
the masters, but actually I'm applying it to today's type of lighting, today's colors, today's sense of humor. So
Mhm.
that translation is what is hard to control.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, my last drawing is the first one, I think. The one I just posted yesterday is the first one of this series, and I painted this girl. It's just a drawing, charcoal drawing with this girl with this unicorn, and
I saw
she's
it.
looking at.
I saw it.
Yeah, it's
It's
a,
really
it's a
good.
little it's a little weird, and that's probably a naive
Mm.
reaction to my future. So you're
Mm.
always at a naive stage, but when you look
Mm.
back, you can
Yeah.
see that what you did before was even more naive. So you
Yeah, I
know,
get it. The
but yeah.
naivete moves with you, but it goes through some shifts and some, I guess, it becomes more adult. So I guess,
Yeah, you become more adult, but you're still gonna be immature as hell.
it's always compared to what comes next, immature
Yes,
yeah,
and then when
that's
you
really
start,
crazy.
yeah, when you feel good, then you die.
When you think you made it, that's it. It's done. And that's your
No,
limitation, your limited being, like
no,
you
no,
said.
yeah.
So
Hopefully, I
yes.
never feel that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. With modern technology and medicine, who knows? We could preserve ourselves. I don't know if we want to, but that's really off topic. So actually, let's jump to the modern age. I want to hear more about what you do right now in social media. You have an excellent YouTube channel, and also on Instagram. I've started following you. If you can tell us about what you do, and I actually want to connect it. I'm going to give you the whole context now, actually. Because one of the things that are important for me personally is to share, and we talked about this before, is to share as much as possible and encourage as much as possible other people to create with complete passion and courage. And it's almost to my detriment in a way that I want to share everything. But on the other hand, an artist does need some alone time to hone the skills and to be selfish and to work on their own creation. So for me, it's always a balancing act of sharing, but also taking my own time. And I am aware of the fact that I want to share so much that almost means I'm going to give up some kind of an upside. Maybe finally I'll get to a level that's here instead of here. So I want to hear your thoughts on that, and maybe then you can talk a bit about what you do. I went complete selfish and just asked my own question, but and a bit about what you do generally speaking in social media. And
Yeah. Well, for me, that's interesting because even though I I'm sharing what I'm doing, I think I'm sharing it because not necessarily to teach, even though that's a result of it. Like,
Mhm.
because since I'm learning stuff, I'm so passionate about the process of learning.
You have to share
As
that.
soon as you share it, you're teaching it.
Mhm.
But the intention, from my point of view, is to record my journey,
Mm.
to have the process out there, so when things, whatever happens, people know where it came from. And it was kind of late. I could have started earlier, but whatever. Social media started, and by the time I got into it, and like, whatever, it's been 2 years of me. A little in March is going to be 2 years of me doing the YouTube, but I've been in social
Mhm.
media before. So the way I see social media is, I see social
Documentation
media.
of your journey.
No, I think it's the bar to hang out. It's like
Mm.
social media for me is where the impressionists used to hang out in a bar and talk about their stuff. So for instance, when you come to the bar of the world, which is like, social media in general, it can be different genres, different bars.
Mm.
You drink wine here and beer there, or this is a tea
Yeah.
place. But the idea is to go and socialize and show your journey and talk to similar minded people. So
Mhm.
the way I
And
do it is,
different-minded people,
yeah, very
which is
different.
really
Yeah,
interesting.
but at the end, people will isolate. Some people will leave the bar, and at the end of the day, you have a group of the table that wants to talk about it. And
Mhm.
those are the
Yeah,
people
yeah.
that stick around. They comment and they give you feedback, and they tell you suck, and they tell you they love you. So at the end of the day, that's a community. So I believe, like in nature, if you go to the bar with a pretentious attitude, you'll be a little bit. If you go to the bar wanting to teach too much, you only
Mhm.
get the students, and then the other people go. So for me, it's the balance between experimenting what
Mm.
I've been finding out during the day, and I sit at the table of social media and I say, I found this out. What do you think? I'm in this, and I'm showing
Mhm.
this, and I sold. So it's fine to say that you sold a painting. It's fine to say that you lost this, or it's fine to, it's like whatever you want to make public about your journey that you think is important for others to learn from and to give you feedback so you can learn from them.
Mhm.
And
That's
then that's
really
my
interesting.
approach. Yeah, that has been my approach, and it has worked because then people react exactly like I'm treating it.
Mhm. I find it fascinating. It's like you use it in the in the most effective way in that kind of sense, and I like that. The way I approach it also is kind of sharing what I'm doing and kind of opening up about it. It's not necessarily teaching, but I love the fact that you said if you're only going to teach, then only the students will stay, and then who gives you the feedback, who helps you
Yes, yes,
improve,
and
who
and
who
as a, and
reminds you that you're still not necessarily there.
yes, exactly. And as an artist, you have to have goals, and you say,
Mhm.
okay, what do I want to accomplish with my attitude in this bar? Am I looking like, desperate for gallery attention? That shows, and they go.
Mhm.
So, are you showing that you're most interested in having a solid show in a museum, and where you? So, I think your approach will reflect. And I mean, and it's a bunch of humans hanging out in the same place. So whatever you bring it, you will get from it.
Mhm. That's really good. I wanna. That's it. Connected for me some stuff. I was writing fervently here. I actually wanted to ask you one thing. So I want to talk about some habits that you have. Before we go into that, I'm actually curious about the gallery thing because a lot of people, I think, including myself, are in a place where they feel like their art is good. It's unique. It may stand for something, but then they don't know exactly how to get into that world. Now, there's all the general advice out there. Make sure that your art is the best, create a top-notch portfolio. But I actually want to hear your perspective on getting into galleries, because what a lot of people don't talk about is the fact that if you do go to school, then you build those connections in which your teacher is a gallery owner, and or your teacher knows someone who's an art collector that'll be interested in your taste. I actually want to hear like the tough love, not necessarily just like the do the best you can, because it's a very kind of niche and fenced world in a way, but once you're in it, you're in it. So
Mhm.
if you have something to add to that, I'm actually curious to hear.
Well, you can be in it and out of it. Okay, I have
Mm-hmm.
friends or examples that are have been shown in the main event in Art Basel, which is the biggest art event in the world, and they're in the convention center, and then something happens with the gallery, and they're out of it, and
Mm-hmm.
then they can stay out of it. Okay, so
Yeah.
and people can go in and out, but I think it's exactly what you said. Like there are certain established schools in New York and around the world that already trains you to move. It's like a career. So as soon as you graduate, then you go to this well, as you are working towards your masters, people come and do studio visits, and they you start the dialogue with collectors
Mm-hmm.
and writers, and then the gallery know where to place you. So there's a whole structure that we are outsiders and we're trying to influence that market, but at the same time it's harder for us because we're not in it, and the school is, and the whole system is.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that if you go to the schools you will make it, because they still will choose you and you depend on them, and it's a game like that, just like in the free market. But it's definitely harder in certain aspects from an outsider, but also it's good because then you come fresh. So then the same
Mm-hmm.
gallery that is having all these graduates from Yale see suddenly someone doing something weird
Mm-hmm.
from Africa, and they say, I'm going to represent this person because he doesn't belong to our group, so he
Yeah.
he brings something new to the table.
If it
And
is
I
a win, it's a glorious win,
Yeah,
basically. Yeah.
exactly. So, but to be there, I think you have to kind of love it. And if you don't, it's like what I said before. What do you do every
Mm-hmm.
day? Do you talk to galleries? Do you go there? So if you're detached from it, it's gonna be harder to be part of it. It's like anything, if you don't do it, if it's not part of your world, how is it going to become part of your world? And suddenly, um, so for me is from the beginning when I graduated from the Angel Academy, that was my last school. I came with the purpose of getting a gallery. That was my first thing. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
before I'm gonna do just like enough paintings that are required for a gallery to look at me and take me
Mm-hmm.
seriously. So then that's when I spent 2 or 3 months around there, developing in my parents' apartment a series right out of school, and
Mm-hmm.
I got into this, like, to finding my style at that time, which was do what you know, still lives, plus make it different enough so that nobody else can claim it. It's only yours,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have something solid to present. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was going to be that simple, and it was in a funny way. It was, because then the problem is your self-esteem. How do you feel interacting with people? Because some people feel that the gallery has this atmosphere that is like intimidating and
Yeah,
is
of course.
rejecting,
They're
and that is a
snobs. They
problem.
don't look at you. Yeah, I get it. I see it every day. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can also think that those are people looking for opportunities
Mm.
and ways to sell paintings to other people. So they're actually not that, like they have to just do that, because otherwise 200 million artists are going to run into the gallery, rush into the gallery, and expect them to be exhibited. So if you look at the common sense of it, yes, the gallery wants artists. They make living from artists,
Mhm.
so they're your best friends, and they want you.
Mhm.
That's why you want to be there. But at the same time, you have to be smart, saying, okay, they will have to reject a lot of people.
Mm.
Am I not? How do I avoid that? Um,
Yeah.
and for me, that was the strategy for my first 3 or 4 galleries, was me planning more that connection with the galleries. How do I approach them differently,
Mhm.
that they can actually start a conversation with me without thinking that I'm one of the losers that wants to just look for a gallery just to make money. And for
Mhm.
me, when I proposed my idea to the galleries, every time it was a whole project. Like what I'm doing and what I could do for them, and then it's
Mhm.
you build the
Yeah.
connection like that.
The way I look at it's really interesting. The way I look at it, and I took that from what you said as well. I don't. It's first connections, obviously. It's you have to live that world, because I can concede that I don't live that world, and quite frankly, hearing you talk about it, I'm like, maybe I just am not that interested in it right now. Because coming out from the outside as an outsider and just trying to get into a gallery, it's kind of like you are taking value from them, and you don't realize how holistic it should be, becoming a part of that world. And if it comes naturally to you, if you naturally like going to galleries and talking to the artists and talking to the owners and meeting a lot of colleagues that do the same thing, that obviously, if you don't like those things, well, you don't really have anything to look for in a gallery. I would say just try to sell your stuff on your own. So it's like you can't be half there and half not there. You have to say, okay, well, if it interests me, I'm gonna be an active part of that world. I guess we're gonna
At
say.
least at the beginning,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
after, I don't like that idea of being around it too much, and because then you
Mhm.
become part of the consumer. You always have to be the one managing. You always have to be the one with the
Mhm.
business idea. So it wasn't so much being part of, you don't have to socialize with the artists, you don't have to socialize with the
Mhm.
galleries. I think there is a way. I mean, obviously
You
if you do
could.
that, you're
Yeah.
connected and they know you in the neighborhood. Yeah, the moment you do something strong, they might invite you.
Mhm.
But also as a mentality, as a system, that from the artist has to enjoy being in it if you have to, or respecting the
Yeah.
person, or wanting to add value to the gallery. Like, there's so many things, because
Mhm.
actually it's a supermarket. It's like if
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, if you think that the guy that grows the tomato can be intimidated approaching the supermarket and saying,
Mhm.
"Listen, I give you the best tomatoes possible, and I'll be on time, and I give you the best quality, and all this stuff." But there are other people that don't know how to do that. They do the tomato, and then they require someone else to do it for them. And I think that's the worst case, because the best one
Mhm.
is the one that grows it and knows what it is, and understands that the marketplace is the one that's going to say, "Okay, you belong in this aisle,
Mhm.
and this is going to be your brand." And if you see it like that, you become part of the whole system. You know that you're one part of a system, and you need to associate yourself with the other parts of the whole thing to
Mhm.
be kind of working,
Yeah.
and now social
That's
media makes us independent. So a lot of artists don't need to go through that, and I think that's amazing, because you can
Mhm.
make it on your
Yeah.
own. But it shouldn't be just a statement. It should be out of really saying, like you said, maybe I'm not interested in doing this. Like,
Mhm.
what
Yeah.
is the end goal,
Yeah. If the end goal is to reach as many people as possible, as you said, there is social media. And I think a lot of it comes down to aligning the interests of you and the gallery. That's basically it. They want to do something, to add to culture, obviously to sell work, to do these kinds of things, and you have to kind of feel like how you can provide that for them as well. So that's great. Actually, that answered so many things I had. So I'm still writing down notes for myself. Thank you for this.
And also the type of gallery, just quickly, like the type of gallery. Some people want to be in galleries just because they have a good reputation,
Mhm,
but
yeah.
honestly, they don't match there. And even the gallery owner is the
Mm.
best one to tell you, because I think honestly, if you approach the right gallery, they will take you. If you
Yes.
are disciplined enough, and you have a voice, and you have taken care of your side as an artist, the
Mm.
only thing you have to do is match
Yeah.
the right
Find that
gallery.
good match. Exactly. Yeah.
And because sometimes they don't see it, and that's the best thing. If they say no, keep going, keep changing. Like, if you reach 300 galleries, trust me, a couple are gonna take you.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't want to work with those that aren't a good match, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
exactly.
like publishing houses and authors, by the way. You have to find the one that suits you and your needs. Yes. So, with that being said, I want us to talk about one last thing really here. And that is most successful people tend to have daily habits that help them reach their success, that they can attribute some of their success to. Now, I did mention the fact that you create and you created so much. I'm curious to hear about maybe your other habits that you do on a daily basis or something like that you think are responsible for that. Because for me, for example, I meditate, I write down my thoughts every day. So I was curious to hear your take on this, and if you have something like that.
Hmm. I don't know what can add here value. I mean, I think writing is one of the best things you could be doing, by the way,
Hmm.
because that was a recommendation that I got from one of my good teachers early on in the contemporary training. And she said, write, because when you write, you're thinking about it, you're editing it, you're kind of thinking for with yourself, and
Hmm.
then you make things. So I think that's like an amazing thing. I do that. I just think of short-term goals. I think that is
Hmm.
one thing that helps me, is that I can feed from the achievement, and then I get fueled up to do the next one and the next one, and it comes like an addiction or like a lifestyle, that you are producing something with an aim. And that also helps you, because then it's easier to say no when someone is going fishing and they invite you,
Hmm.
because you say, man, if I go there, I'm gonna be a day behind on my project.
Hmm.
And you fall in love so much with your project. And I think that's what motivates me every day. Like, I get up and I know exactly where I should be at the end of the day. And if I
Hmm.
achieve that, that feels so good, that you can
Yeah.
actually at the end of the day do whatever you want, and feel guilty about it, even if it was an hour of drinking a beer or walking
Yeah.
around not doing anything. You're like, wow, I earn it, instead of doing it before. So I don't do anything at first that will damage my path to completing that goal during that day.
Hmm.
And yes, I do have kind of weekly goals, or maybe even like a month, but I don't look beyond something that I cannot even, I just have like an overall idea of where I'm going, so I don't start working on computers, like, enough to keep my track. But I
Yeah, I get
think
it.
the short terms, yeah, I think short terms is way more useful than big long term goals for me.
Yeah, and that's one main thing, really, being the whole goal oriented thing and really thinking about these things. I think one important thing is to remind yourself of your vision, I guess, every single day, because that's one of those things that you can't forget. Funny enough, you can forget that there's something that's really important for you, and if you don't take care of it, I guess. Yeah.
I'm having a partner and being aware of also influences from around you, because I think there's an aspect of an artist that is very self, I don't know how to say it, like, it's very isolated,
Hmm.
and as an artist, if you are isolated, you can be missing out on responses that might help you. So I'm always aware of what people are reacting, how people are reacting to my work, so that I can guide, because I can think also that I'm wrong, and if I do something that doesn't work, it's my fault, not everybody else's.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and and I want to be part of the community. I want to be part of this society. And if I get rejected and rejected and rejected, I think, okay, there is something wrong with me. So I kind of, y- that's a tough subject, because most artists become successful because they impose their vision. They trust
Hmm.
themselves. They trusted their vision so much that they worked towards it and made it happen. But so many artists have failed also because of that, of not
Hmm.
changing and adapting. So I think if you have a good sense of something, when it's really your fault or when it's society not understanding you yet, I think
Hmm.
if you know that difference, that's what makes the big difference. Because you say, okay, they're not ready for this and they're reacting weird, but I'm cooking something and they're gonna be crazy when I serve the plate, you know.
Hmm.
And in that sense, you have to control it. If you're just going against the flow for going against it, or if you're just following what people say, then it doesn't work either.
Yeah, I totally get it. That's great. It actually really helped me. So I'm happy to have gotten that. With this, I want to wrap it up. But before we do that, I just wanted to ask if there's anything like some kind of a message you want to share that's like the stage is yours. Anything in particular, maybe that's important for you to say, or you can talk about your next project or something you want to promote. So,
um yeah, I have nothing, I mean, other than maybe yeah, no, yeah, other than stealing your viewers, I have no other plans, no.
I wouldn't count on that just yet. But I'm gonna
Okay.
need your help marketing this video. Yeah, yeah, I get it.
um yeah, no, I don't have anything particular like that. Maybe because I love just whatever happens, comes up,
Yeah.
happens. I didn't have anything. I don't know. um yeah.
Okay. So this is, if you want, we can wrap it up with rap. That's not my
That's fine.
specialty.
That's funny. And you know what's funny? Other like my YouTube channel was
Mhm.
something that took a risk that I'm like, that's like one of the evidence that if you have fun with something and you love something,
Mhm.
it should work. Like if you have
Mhm.
prepared, because I loved theater, and I studied theater for some years when I was studying contemporary art
Yeah,
and art, in the established system.
I read about your history a bit, about the
Okay,
theater
so
and about
yeah,
the
so I
boxing.
always wanted to be on stage, and I always
Mm.
wanted to create that sense of drama and stuff. And
Mm.
and one and my YouTube channel was something like that. I said, okay, let me just create like a little monologue
Mm.
and see what happens. Like, let me do 4 monologues, and then we learn how to do it technically with my wife, and she's being so helpful too. And part of my success, I think, is her, because I met her the first day. The first week I started studying in Italy, and she has become part of my journey because she also liked our history, and we fell in love with each other and with the idea of building a project. And
Mm.
that is so useful, because then you have someone with good taste that you trust, telling you what they think. And I think that clears things up like that. And
Mm.
even though, like, when I said let's do a vlog, she's like, are you sure? you know and I said, I'm gonna do it like this silly. I'm gonna talk a little bit about what goes on in my career,
Mm.
and then I'm gonna finish it up with a rap, even though because I am the worst singer in the world. But for
Mm.
some reason, that's a little frustration that I have. Like, if there's karaoke, I'll try to sing one or two, and people are
Yeah.
like, okay, this is funny.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm gonna introduce it too, because just because I like it, even though I'm bad at it, and it's just
Mhm.
5%, 1% of my whole thing, the video. So then I started doing these silly raps, writing them down, and trying to deliver. But it was something that could have not worked. It could have
Mm.
looked so ridiculous in theory that I don't
Yeah.
even know how people were like, "That's funny," and everybody ignores the raps, of course. But it gives like what it gives is like a fun touch at the end to say, this is
Mm.
not serious, this is art, and art is fun, and this is my kind of journey. So
Mm.
that's funny.
Yeah. And funny enough, you answered my question. That's a really good way to wrap it up. Don't forget to enjoy yourselves, because if you don't, then what are you really doing here?
That's the purpose of art.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cesar, I want to thank you so much. I really, really appreciate this. You've been so responsive, and it was so fun, like, talking to you. And honestly, I just wanted to kind of make the connection and get to know you. So that's a really good way of doing that.
My God.
And
Thank you.
yeah, I really, I was so I felt the immediate kinship. That's what I wrote for you, to you as well. It's like I just felt like there was a lot to discover if we talk. So I want to thank you so much for that. And anyone listening should definitely check out your work, your Instagram, everything is going to be linked down below. I always link stuff up, so be sure to check that out, and follow the developments, because you've heard it here as well. That there's always, we're always shifting and changing, and it's always interesting following, like, how your style develops and your art and your approach. And again, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Liron. And
And
also, I wanted to tell you that that spirit that you have is so needed. That is what it is, pretty much. It's like that honest search, and that relationship. You know how many people can want to maybe talk about something specific, and they don't say it because what would they think, or what would Caesar
mm,
think? And I think that attitude is the main thing. So you are like an example of how things are, because now I'm like, man, now whenever I want to talk about something, I'm gonna contact you and talk about it. Like, in that sense, like that's so needed, to be out there and not be having preconceptions about
mm,
things or people. So everything for the arts like that is beautiful. So thank you so much.
thank you. Yeah, obviously, I'm always trying to learn new things, and to share them as much as I can. Thank you
That's
so
the way,
much.
man.
It's been a real pleasure, and I hope we can do it again, maybe in the future.
Yeah, totally.
So Peace.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Yeah, well, so this is it. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed this. Maybe learned something new, maybe started thinking about things you weren't thinking about before, maybe a little differently. I want to thank Cesar once again for being so responsive and helping me and making this happen. Also, I will link down there, and probably somewhere around here, links to his main, like his YouTube channel, Instagram, main places where you can check out his work. And again, if you reached this point of the video and you enjoyed it, don't forget to like it, because that really tells YouTube to show the video to more people, and I am trying to reach as many people as possible, help as many people as possible, and inspire as many people as possible. So I want to thank you once again. If you still haven't subscribed, make sure you do. I also want to apologize about the camera issues all throughout the video. I always try to minimize that, but it's inevitable. Just my iPhone, for some reason, even though I made so much space available, ran out of space, stopped filming, so I had to improvise and turn on the other camera, and so the awkward angle there at the end. But hopefully, regardless of that, it was still a fun and interesting and educational listen. One last thing, don't forget, if you still haven't subscribed, I have other interviews like this, tons of other videos, there's the podcast, a lot of things to find out for you if you're interested in watercolor, painting, sketching, art, creativity, and all of those things. So I want to thank you once again, and I will see you again in another vid real soon.